here on Last Call. If you're new here, here's how it works. You're going to hit that like button, maybe give us a subscribe, or drop a question into the chat that you want answered by one of our handicappers, or of course, one of our guys from Looking Behind the Counter. We're going to start off with Art DeCesar from the Westgate Superbook. He comes in every single Saturday, brings us those needs bright and early there on the West Coast. So we always appreciate him. Art, lots going on. Super Bowl Sunday there at the Westgate. You guys already have reduced juice as far as the side goes. Let's talk about that really quick before we get into the college basketball slate.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Kelly. No doubt about it. Minus 105. Also, minus 109 on the total. We went to that yesterday. So, offering reduced juice on everything as far as the Super Bowl goes.
I love it. Yesterday, John Murray said he thought that the Eagles would close a favorite. And I said, we'll see. And then all of a sudden, we saw the screen light up, some people going to pick. What are you guys at right now at the Westgate? What are you anticipating the closing number being?
Still sitting comfortably. Chiefs minus 1, minus 105, total of 48.5, minus 109, both sides. And then money line minus 110 on the Chiefs. I'm with John. I'm with the rest of the room. I think eventually we'll get to pick. And most of us feel the Eagles probably go off as a 1-point favorite. Now, obviously, that might not happen, and maybe we go off as pick. But I think you've seen from the opening number of 1.5 the way it's moved, especially the money line. You know, there are barely any, plus monies out there anymore. Plus 110, plus 105, even money. All that stuff is really gone on the Eagles because you saw a lot of people take shots on that with such a tight spread.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was probably the way to go. We'll get into some more Super Bowl talk tomorrow on Last Call. 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. John Murray from the Westgate is going to be joining us. VR is going to be joining us, and Andy Lang to go over all of those prop bets. But right now, we have Art DeCesar from the Westgate Superbook. We're going to hit this beautiful college basketball slate. Now, Art, I have been under the weather, and I've been doing a little bit of college basketball work, get my laptop open, but I have been ice cold. Like, I had St. John's last night. Outside of that, it has just been awful. I'm hoping some dogs can start cashing out right here on this beautiful Saturday morning. Can you tell me what you've seen from behind the counter on some of these more prominent games?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with the Sharps, and then we'll go to the public. Sharps laid Vanderbilt minus 2 at home against Texas. We're now sitting 3. They laid 2 with Creighton at home against Marquette. We're now sitting 4. They laid a big number with Baylor, minus 9.5. We got all the way to 11.5. We started to come back down to 10.5. There's a little bit of buyback at home against Central Florida, but the early buddy was sharp for Baylor. Cincinnati was a pick overnight at home against BYU. Seen sharp money move that up to 1.5. And then you've seen some love for Arkansas, who's played a lot better of recent. They're at home today. They were getting love at +6 and +5 at home against Alabama. It's now 4.5. And the public is laying 3 road favorites. They're laying Duke against Clemson -7. They're laying Michigan -3 against Indiana. And they're also laying Wisconsin -6 against Iowa. All pretty good size road favorites, except for Michigan. I mean, it's under 2 baskets. But the other ones, you're talking 6, 7 points.
Yeah, very interesting. The public does love laying road chalk, and this year it hasn't been that bad. Like I said, I'm waiting for some of those dogs to win outright. One of those underdogs is my alma mater. That game tips off in 3 hours, so I'm really curious. Actually, 2 hours. I take that back. 3 hours. I can do math this morning. Don't mind me. I'm kind of curious to see what you guys are seeing on that K-State KU game, Art. I like the Wildcats every time they're at home versus the Jayhawks. Just from a situational standpoint, I'll admit it. This is Kansas State's Super Bowl, especially how atrocious their season has gone. Right now, they're on Bartovic, the number 2 team in the country. They have been playing much better. KU's had a really rough stretch as of late, right? Since that overtime game versus Houston, been kind of on this roller coaster ride. Talk to me about this game, what you're seeing as far as betting percentages, any sharp money coming in one way or another.
Yeah, interesting on this game, Kelly. And listen, it's a huge slate, so some games can get lost. This game feels like it got lost a little bit. Kansas is a nice sized road favorite. They're 4. But you're right, this is Kansas State's Super Bowl. And Kansas has been really up and down, and it's not a team that the Sharps have really liked to bet all year. Kansas is obviously always going to be very public. So I think eventually when we do get to some sort of split on the game, the public will come in and they'll lay Kansas. Kansas will probably be in all the money line parlays as well. Haven't seen sharps hit the 4 yet, but it could come.
All right, I'm going to keep an eye on that one. I will most likely be on the Wildcats. Another game that I like today, I feel like I'm kind of on an island here, right? So Art, my good friend Clint, friend of the show, keeps really good, meticulous track records of each team, right? So some of the things we like to look at is home teams, double-digit favorites, things per conference, right? We start to look at if there's two ranked teams, ranked versus ranked, and that's been the one that I thought is the most interesting. Now, I'm kind of wanting to step in front of that today with the Florida Gators. I feel like the whole world is going to be on Auburn, and rightfully so. I think Auburn is probably, well, it's a 2 horse race for the first place there in the SEC. We know the SEC is the best basketball conference this year, but I have been obsessed with this Florida Gators team all season long. And of course, Creighton Jr. is going to be back for this one. Do you think they're not getting enough love in the marketplace, or am I crazy and taking the square dog here?
No, I don't think it's a square dog. And first of all, very hard place to play, Florida. So obviously you get that going. And like you said, you mentioned they're getting one of their top players back. Auburn's obviously really good. Them and Duke are the two best teams in the country. I don't think there's any question about that. But it's very hard to win on the road in the SEC. So I don't think you're wrong there.
All right. Anything else you'd love to share with our audience? I know you have a busy day there at the Westgate Superbook, getting ready for Super Bowl weekend. And by the way, if you guys are in town in Vegas and you have not been to the Westgate Superbook for the Super Bowl, you are completely missing out. Not only do they have seating such as, booths, pods. I always go to the clubhouse because I'm snotty like that. They have a huge back bar, tons of seating in the back there at the deli. And they also open up the theater as well as the convention center. I have watched the Super Bowl and pretty much every single year there at the Westgate Superbook. I realized coming on today, this is my first Super Bowl I'm missing in Las Vegas. Art, let's leave it with that. Tell me what else you guys have going on and what people need to know for this weekend.
Well, listen, I think just, to reiterate again, obviously, look for our reduced juice. We got the side at 105, total at minus 109. So obviously got a lot going on there. And, obviously the closer we get to game time, we'll be raising limits. We'll be raising app limits, counter limits, all that type of stuff. And I always tell people, if you have any questions, you're in the sports book, you can always ask for me. I'll always pop out and give you a couple of minutes and kind of run through, any questions that you might have.
Art is the best at ArtDice21. We'll get to Rob's question here in a minute with VR because that is interesting as far as Clint's spreadsheet goes, but we're going to let Art go. We appreciate him always taking time out of his busy schedule there at the Westgate Superbook. VR is waiting in the wings. He was just asking me before we went on. He said, hey, I got to take Jess. It's our first Super Bowl in Las Vegas. Where should we go? I think that Vegas is by far like one of the best places to watch the Super Bowl. It is so electric. It is so crowded and crazy. That's part of the reason why I kind of like the clubhouse there at the Westgate Super, because I can go out into the crowd, but then I can also be left alone. Like last year when I was holding a Niners ticket VR, I got to just sit in there for the fourth quarter, not by myself, but like away from the craziness. So your girlfriend's first Super Bowl in Las Vegas, what are you guys thinking about doing?
I don't know. Definitely going to one of those parties for sure. And like hit the sports book, fire, because she wants to bet some props, bet the game, put in those parlays, the fun stuff. And then go to one of those parties after seeing the chaos in the sports books, because it's already picking up. It's funny because we went out last night on the Strip to have dinner, and I was like, damn, I'm surprised it's not that busy. I would think it was already packed, but I'm like, oh wait, it's only Friday, it's not Saturdays. People are probably coming in tonight. Dude, by the end of the night, because we didn't get home till a little late, it was packed. Like the casino was freaking packed. So it's going to be electric for sure. Once again, anywhere you are, like you can't go wrong. I think anywhere on the Strip, but I just don't want to end up standing like in a sports book, because it's so packed. People get there so early, so I don't mind paying for stuff, because like if you do also like. Most of them are good, like even the food and drinks that a lot of them have, a lot of bigger parties. So it's not like you're getting ripped off at all, because they know you're going to be betting it. So it's not like they're really trying to make money from any of that stuff. They're going to make it from the sports book. So it's more like just a way to get you in. And I think more a way to like cut out the people that are just going to be, taking advantage, like the freeloaders. I don't mean
absolutely
negatively, but it's a little way to like kind of, like you said, you were able to go into the clubhouse and insulate yourself a little bit. That's why I'm like, I have no problem paying to insulate myself a little bit. I love the chaos of the sports book with each score and all that, but you got to get there too early to get a seat, unless you have connections like you do. And then because I'm going to be betting everything for so late, but I'm just really excited. It's weird. It's like going to be like my 29th, I think, almost 30th Super Bowl. Yeah, since 96, Kel. And I still get excited. I still feel like Christmas morning every year, every single year. So I love it. I love it out here.
Sunday is going to be epic. I am very happy that Jess gets to experience it out there. But yes, I agree with you. The influx of Californians, people coming from Arizona trying to get away from waste management or whatever. People are coming to Vegas, and you're going to see it over the next 24 hours get really, really busy. So we'll work on finding you guys a fun party to join. But let's get into some of these questions from our audience, because that is why we're here. Let's talk about Georgia being favored over Mississippi State here. VR, this is a Georgia team that I have been so frustrated with as of late. I'm going to pull up a couple of things on my end because I want to kind of, bitch about them for a second. This team has been so frustrating. We know that they have a really solid defense, but their Achilles heel is they cannot knock down a three, and they turn the ball over so much. But now they're back at home off a nice win over LSU. I looked at them in that spot. I, of course, stayed away because as of late, they just haven't been playing well. This is a younger team, but I think that they're finally starting to get some continuity here. So let's talk about when you're looking at teams that are ranked versus unranked. Years ago, this used to be a great bet. If you had a home team that was unranked, laying points, it was almost automatic.
Yeah, because again, most of the recreational bettors, they're going to look at those high profile games, the standalone TV games, the one getting all the attention. And let's keep it real. Most aren't following it as religiously as someone that's betting it every single day. And more importantly, betting for profit like you and I do. So they're going to grab their sheets. They're going to do their little handicapping and check out a couple of sites. And they're going to see the ranked team over the unranked team. And that's usually where the money's going to go. Like we were able to take advantage of it for so long, because it was shading towards those biases that we always talk about, that the sportsbook isn't putting out a number to try to tell you this is what we think that the prediction is. We're not predicting Team A to win by 6 or 7 points. They're saying, how are we going to manage risk the best way? And knowing that the recreational bettors are going to come in the ranked side, and even if we let the sharps come in and take the unranked team getting more points or giving less points than they should be, it's going to work out well for them in the end. That's what usually happens. It almost never fails. And again, markets become more efficient and bettors become sharper and sharper than ever before, especially with all the information at their fingertips. Forgive me for always looking to the right. It's just stuff comes through the instant messaging board that I'm in with this group that I bet for. So I'm always looking to see is more stuff coming in so I can give you like up to the second information. What I'm looking for, if you have a question, please do me a favor, especially on a long board like college basketball today. Give me a bet number. Because I'm scrolling up and down the screen trying to look.
Yeah, VR, that's my fault. I'll make sure to give you the bet number.
Here's what I'll tell you. I just found it. All Georgia. Right now, the square accounts that I'm looking at, this dude's got 27. It's early, and it's a later game. He's got 27 bets, right? 26 of them are on Georgia.
Wow.
None of them are from a bot. None of them are from a lit up account. They light up the sharp accounts that they pay attention to. So take that information as you will. If the betting line doesn't reflect it, and in this case, I really don't think it does, like all that action, because we're looking at the line right now. The up-to-date line is 1.5, pretty much where the opener is. Like, that's getting no respect at all. In fact, it went the opposite a little bit. Georgia opened 1, went to pick 'em, now went to 1.5. I totally think that's public money related. None of the information that I have bet Georgia. None of the guys that already sent me the stuff they've moved, and I send them the stuff I did, have Georgia on it. Art was just on here. I come on early just to make sure I hear what Art has to say. He didn't mention Georgia. So that 1.5 point line move is anything but sharp money related. Not telling you that Mississippi State's the side, but just telling you the sports book definitely is on the side of Mississippi State, at least the books that I'm looking at, the credit shops. And more importantly, they're willing to take a position. They're not wanting to get Mississippi State action, because all they got to do is bump this up to 2.5. Some sharp's going to say, hey, you know what? It's off somewhere. It would open to pick them. Now it's 2.5. Let's give it some resistance. That hasn't happened at all. Like, gun the head, I'm betting Mississippi State. If I have to pick a side on that team, it's Mississippi State or pass. It has nothing to do with fading the public, because unless you're getting 11 to 10, you're never going to get rich fading the public. But it has to do with it's getting zero respect from the betting market. Like, it's a heavy bet game. Believe it or not, I'm surprised that it's a 3 o'clock Pacific time game, 6 p.m. Eastern from what it looks like. And it's already attracted that much action from the credit shop. And yet they're showing no respect for all that money. That usually is a sign to look to the, like, I would look for reasons to bet Mississippi State. Like, if the perfect setup for me is that game, and now I would dive in and look for Mississippi State. And the only thing that would be better is if I have Mississippi State circled and I get on the instant messaging board, take Mississippi State plus 1.5. Then I know I'm firing. That's a 4% play for me. That's what I'll be looking at now. I like the Mississippi State side. I'm hoping for sharper confirmation other than just seeing that the market's not giving it any respect. But yeah, it's Mississippi State or pass for me.
Just to give you guys an update really quick, ranked versus home ranked favorites, right? So the situation we were just talking about in the SEC, 4-2-1 this year. Nothing really to write home about or any other reason why you would want to take Georgia. If you guys have a question for VR, let's drop it. There's Clint, the guy with the spreadsheet we were just talking about. Any info on Texas Tech, Arizona VR? Let me get you a
8:30. You got the best producer in the house. He's already 3 minutes ahead of us. All right. This is another one where we're looking at heavy Arizona money. And nothing. If you see that total drop down, then rest assured that's as sharp as it comes, because there's a lot of it's 100% on the over. There's nothing but over bets. Again, it's a late game, but the fact they're already betting it over tells me that's one that's going to be a lot of risk for the books, heavy risk for the books. And it's also one that's got probably 3x the amount of tickets that these 9 o'clock tip-offs have. And about 8 out of 10 of them are on the Arizona side. They like the Arizona side. No surprise, it's the favorite. It's getting a little respect, at least. No, not at all. In fact, it went 3.5, 3, back to 3.5. So that is another situation where I would look for reasons to back the Texas Tech side because of the amount of action that's coming in, getting no respect from the market. It's definitely not sharp. Again, it's nothing on my sheet, nothing that Art gave you, nothing that anyone else gave me, let me think that that's the way to play it. So it's another dog or pass situation for me.
Yeah, I would agree. Texas Tech is on my long list. All right, Oklahoma, Tennessee. Guys, drop the rotation numbers. 603.
There we go. 603. Let's go in.
This is a noon Eastern here, so it's going to be tipping off really soon, VR. Tennessee is a 5-point favorite. Here's my problem with Oklahoma, VR, and this is a big problem. There are just certain teams that I have been dead wrong on all year long, and Oklahoma is that team. They are so frustrating because they don't protect the basketball. They don't get to the rim, but boy, do they defend the 3-ball well. And that's kind of where I'm going, all right, maybe if these two defenses get together here, something's got to give. 5 seems awfully short for a Tennessee team with Rick Barnes, solid defense. We know that they just smother their opponents defensively.
Good two-way action so far, even from the recreational bettors. Haven't seen much sharp money on that. The one thing that sticks out to me is you have a Tennessee team that's been 500 on the road against Oklahoma, who's playing real good at home. They're 10-2. And what I don't like about the Oklahoma side is seeing how well they've done against the market. Meaning, it's a team that's only won 4 of their last 10 games. But of late, they won 3 of 5. They've covered 4 of 5. Like they're a team that's outperforming the betting market in the short term of late. And looking at the Tennessee side, that hasn't been the case. Like they were 9-point favorites, didn't get it done. They did beat Florida, but that was at home. They did get it done at Auburn on the road, but they were dogs in that spot. So again, I don't really have a big opinion on this game, but the quick handicap for me, being a market reader, looking at just the numbers, I would look probably to the Tennessee side. But it's not a game that sticks out at all. Like saying, like, I felt more comfortable with the other two actually saying, done the head, I would actually take this position for sure. With this one, it's more, if I had to bet it, I'd probably look to the Tennessee side. They're the favorite. Laying 5 on the road and probably not the best thing to do, like you said. But yeah, I don't have much on the game. I don't want to waste his time. His opinion's probably better than mine on that game.
All right, let's see Creighton, 648. Gosh, I'm dyslexic this morning. It's all the Sudafed, I swear. Creighton was a team that was on my long list this morning, VR, and that's because I love what they do. Greg McDermott has this team playing great defense, right? We know that they can knock down those short baskets, hit it in the paint better than anybody. This is a Marquette team, though, that is also off a second straight loss, right? So they lost to UConn, they lost to St. John's. Boy, I like Shaka Smart's team in situations coming off a loss, but this has just been a really tough one for me. I wanted to make a case for Creighton here. Anything you're seeing on your end?
Yeah, we bet Creighton. We actually bet Creighton at -2. Now it's up to 3.5, I believe. So yeah, it's a different bet right now. It doesn't look, as far as the back end goes, it looks like good two-way action. Actually, a little bit more on the dog. Not that sticks out, but the fact that there's a little bit more on the dog does a little bit there. So if you do like the Creighton side, if you like the sharp side, I would wait and see if this comes back maybe to 3. Don't lay to 3.5. See if you could lay to 3. If you agree with it, I doubt you're going to get the 2. That's not going to happen again because it was a legit move. So if we're on the Creighton side, I haven't released that to subscribers. I didn't have a strong lean. What I do is I go all through this on Friday night, circle all the stuff that I like strongest, and then I wait for some kinds of confirmations to come in. That was one I didn't have an opinion on. That's why I didn't release it. But yeah, we're on Creighton, and I take a percentage of the account, so obviously I want them to do well. So I got Creighton -2. My bet's on Creighton -2. But again, I don't have a strong opinion on it.
Yeah, that's tough, VR, because I figured, a lot of the guys in my group know that sometimes I've been doing better in the second half, watching the first half of the game, being able to objectively look at it, and then sometimes you find a better number at halftime. Like, for example, yesterday, Marco was on St. Joe's, was 6.5. I was like, let's just wait till halftime, right? They were only up 2.5, blew their doors off in the second half, so to speak. Sometimes those types of situations, as you mentioned, it's just better to pass. Wait till halftime. Maybe you can find yourself a better number. We got a few more questions here from the audience, and then we'll get to Steve Merril. Do the syndicates deal anything first half? Oh, so VR, as you know, I love Houston first half. It has been a moneymaker for the last 2 seasons. Mizzou's been on a nice first half run themselves. This Missouri team is kind of interesting to me, and I want to talk about them really quickly because I think they're kind of, a little bit more under the radar than some of the other SEC teams. They have some ugly losses, but those were to like Auburn, Tennessee, Illinois. Yeah, that Texas one was a little wonky as well. But today they play Texas A&M, and I think that Texas A&M is very exploitable. If you can get your defense to put a hand in their face, they can't make a basket. They are so frustrating to watch. They're off a couple straight wins themselves. Buzz Williams, I don't want to bag on him as a head coach, but this team just is not good enough, I think, to be able to compete with the Tigers. I like the Tigers today, VR. Anything you're seeing on your end?
On those 2 games, nothing sharp yet. But I want to answer his question about the first halves. This is why more times than not, you're able to take advantage of that. Like Kelly said, where she was blasting Houston first half, because it's rare. I've been moving money for a long time for different groups, and especially in college basketball. I almost never see them just take a first half and nothing at all. Meaning I've just bet a first half for them, but I know they already bet the game with a different runner, a different guy they use. Because what happens is it's a way for them more times than not to get more money down. More times it's sharp guys that are betting these first halves that maybe have an edge, are plus EV, but don't have the bankroll. Don't bet the amount of money that moves the screen. Those are the kind of guys that zero in, like those college basketball specialists, those college football specialists, where they're going to zero in on a first quarter bet. They're going to zero in on a first half bet. And here's why. You can't get enough down. I had someone on my podcast this week, the UFC one that I do, that is a professional bettor. I mean, a real professional bettor. He's been the biggest profit winner at Circa since the property opened. Doesn't have a social media handle or anything like that. Doesn't have anything to promote. But he came on to explain how that game works. And when you get to that level of bankroll, you can't even get down on stuff like that. Because I was asking him about the props. He said, I can't even bet the props. I can't get enough down where it's worth it for me to put the work in, or have other handicappers that I work with put the work in, because we just can't get enough down. We may be able to get down enough down late, like maybe the day of the Super Bowl, but then it's rare. These guys, even a lot of times, that's why I say always pay attention to the screen late, because some of the biggest money comes then. We always think that you got to get out ahead of the market, And that's the best thing to do, because if you get closing line value, you're long-term, you're going to turn a profit. I know it sucks when you lay -1.5, it closes 3, you did your job, and the team loses outright by 20, and you're like, big deal. What did my CLV get me? Trust me, if you get CLV over and over and over again, you're going to take the book's money as long as you manage risk correctly. There's nothing they could do about it. That's the goal. But with guys like that, they're willing to take a less edge because they could bet more money. So they could wait till closer to game day, closer to kickoff, closer to tip-off, where their money mixes in with everybody else's, and more importantly, they could get so much more down. Like they take so much more, like, Kelly, on a Sunday NFL than they do 4 days, 5 days prior on Monday when the lines come out, or Sunday night. They're willing to take a lot more because they know they have all the information factored. They think their line is the sharpest at that moment. But guys like this are able to take advantage of that bias, that edge that the books, again, they're not there to, they would love to balance action in the perfect world, but it's almost never going to happen where you get the same amount of money on team A as team B. So what do they got to do? They got to shade the line towards one way or the other. If they have an opinion, they're going to do it that way. If not, they're going to shade it to what they think the public bias is, so they could take advantage of. If these guys are willing to lay 3, let's make them lay 4. That's what they end up doing. So you almost are never going to see the biggest groups get down on the first halves, making that their handicap, like where they're looking at the game and saying, okay, this team may not cover the game, but they're going to cover the first half. If they're betting the first half, it's because they already have the game, and it's another way for them to get more money down, like they do in baseball, where they'll bet the first 5 full game. And if they like an over, like baseball totals, you know how hard it is to get money down on baseball totals? So they have to bet, yes, there's going to be a run in the first inning, because if there's runs scored, probability you'll get one in the first inning as long as the price is right. They're going to bet first 5 over. They're going to bet full game over. They're going to bet even some props over if they have to. Runs, run hits, errors over. Stuff like that is a way for them to get more money down. So that's also a way for some of the steam chasers to sometimes get a good number, because a lot of now it's more automated, but back in the day, and there's still opportunities where they'll change the game line and not adjust the first half line quick enough. So like if you see the odds logic screen light up across the board on team A, and you lean that way, but you're like, damn, I missed it. Real quickly, look at the first half for that side. Look at the first half, because they may not have adjusted it as quickly, because these guys may not have tried to get more down that way. They may have just gotten enough down on the side, on the total for the game, that they're not going to move the first half line unless, again, the book then sees, okay, they bet the game over. Let's move the first half over to correlate with the full game, and also so we don't get slammed that way as well. So that's how I would look at the first half. Again, there's a lot of specialists out there, just like Kelly, who she knows more about these college basketball teams than I could tell you. That's just a fact. That's just fact.
No, I think the reality
you know what
is
you're talking about. That's what works for you. That's what works for you, and that's what gives you your edge. Don't change what you're doing. You love the sport, dude. Don't change nothing. That knowledge is priceless. That's why I listen to handicappers like you. That's why I listen to like Steve Merril. I was telling him yesterday, because you approach it from a way I'm not efficient at. Like, I don't know the X's and O's like that. I don't know the players. I don't know the stuff that's happening around the team. You do. So I could pick up some nuggets that may not even be factored into the betting line. It gives me even a bigger edge. So I swear, that's why I always listen to that, because it's someone that I know that wins. And they can say whatever they want to. You guys could cut this out. Kelly wins. You can say whatever you want. I promise you, Kelly wins. The network that Kelly has, few people on the planet have. Few people on this planet have. That much I can promise you. The fact that she's doing commercials and doing all videos and being on a site, do not judge her negatively at all with that. If you know what's going on behind the scenes, you'd be very, very surprised. She's just a girl that doesn't brag about it because she doesn't have that ego where she has to prove to anyone that I know what I'm doing. She's been in the space long enough. She's been doing this shit for as long as I have, more or less. I've known her since way, way back in the day when she was betting and you didn't even know her on camera. So trust me when I tell you, the girl knows what she's talking about, and respect her knowledge of it. I do. And I know sharp bettors that definitely do. I know a lot of guys that win that want to know what she has on that piece of paper, because I don't have access to some of those guys she talks to. I don't. That's the truth. I have some access to betting groups. She's got access to every more or less important bookmaker and operator on the Las Vegas Strip. So trust me when I tell you, if she shares a nugget of information, take it. Forgive me, I didn't mean to go long on that, Kel, but it's owed to you for sure, because those are questions you are much better at answering than I am.
Well, I appreciate it, VR. There's been a lot of disdain for some women in the betting space, and
ain't that the truth?
I've just chosen to opt out, because every time I've ever fought back, it's only come back to bite me in the ass. So it's better for me just to sit back and laugh. Cash some tickets. VR, before we let you go, Dustin wants to know, any UFC gold tonight? Possibly, what do you think about the co-main event? It is UFC 312. VR gave me, John Murray gave me Suarez last night. And
did he?
Yes, he did. I
it.
was really happy to hear that. So I joined you guys on her. Talk about that one. I know that you gave out to some of your premium clients as well. Even though the line has moved significantly, do you think it's still worth a wager?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. This is one of the things I love most about sports and athletes, that you know their game plan and they still dominate. This girl, there's no secret. Wang Zhili's team didn't have to think, what is Tatiana Suarez going to do? They know what she's going to do. And the key is, can you stop it? Because she is the best at what she does. Weili Zhang opened up as a huge favorite. The first book that went to market had her like a 2-1 favorite. That lasted maybe all of 3 seconds. I was able to get down at even money on Tatiana Suarez. I laid a little bit, 110, I think 115. I was comfortable, honestly, laying close to 130, 140, thinking she easily wins this fight 6 out of 10 times. I know that's a huge disrespect against someone like Weili Zhang, because again, she's the champ. We know trends successfully. They usually successfully defend 6.5 out of 10 times. She's had the bet more experience in the UFC. She's had the tougher strength of schedule. But Tatiana Suarez comes in with a skill set that she hasn't faced yet. You could compare it to Carla Esparza, and that's day and night. It's almost like a Khabib. You knew what Khabib was going to do, and all you have to do is be able to stop it. And you're not going to be able to, because you haven't wrestled bears in Kazakhstan since you were 4 years old. She's like that. She really is like that. She's a special mixed martial artist. And they may say she's one-dimensional, but that one dimension is as good as it gets. So, yeah, I'm on the Tatiana Suarez side. Win or lose, I think I placed a great bet. And the way the market's reflecting it, I think I did. I'll tell you real quick. I'll roll off a couple bets that I like. In the main event, I like the under. At plus 150, I was able to get to go under 4.5. Usually, going over under 3.5s, under 4.5s, you're going to go broke long term. You're better off going over 3.5s, over 4.5s. They're plus ROI over the last 10 years. No one could disagree with that. But there are spots. There's nothing you do all the time. And usually rematches don't go like the first one. Everyone's thinking this is going to a decision, I don't think so. I like the under 4.5 there. A couple other fights I like. I like Kevin Jousset early on. I think he's chalky, but he should win. I like Jake Matthews, again, chalky, but I think he gets it done. And don't be afraid on this card to maybe lay a little bit of chalk. It's in Australia. They have a handful of Australian fighters that have favorable matchups. And let's not forget, dogs are way ahead of favorites. It's only been a few cards, so it's not like it's going to regress towards the mean in one night. But we know that's what the market's always doing. Right now, dogs have been winning it at over 10% clip higher than they should historically, coming off a year where favorites won about 15% higher than they do. So, hey, we got a little bit of back and forth. I'm not afraid to bet some favorites tonight is what I'm saying. And Tatiana Suarez is now slight favorite, but I think that's the right side. I think Strickland offers money value as well in the main event. I really do. He shouldn't be a 2-1 dog to Duplessis. Shouldn't be higher than my plus 150, 160. And again, it's a bet I like. I'm comfortable placing, even though I know I'm going to throw that ticket out. Or even on a plus 200, when you're running your hottest, you're still going to throw that ticket out, 6 out of 10 times, more or less. You got to be comfortable doing that if you're betting some dogs. I just think this price is way out of whack, so I sprinkled a little something on Strickland as well. And some information for you. Oh, and over 1.5 in the Crute Bellato fight, over 1.5. And that might be juiced a little bit now, but that's a sharp side as well.
Awesome stuff from the Greek Gambler. I know we went a little long, but I'm going to take you guys up until tip-off with Steve Merril. VR, really quickly, are you going to have a steam room tomorrow for Super Bowl Sunday?
Absolutely. And I'm going to have it early enough so everybody could go out, enjoy their parties, go where they're going, enjoy the game. But we got to go over a ton of information because I have so many props. I have pages of props that I moved, but I only gave out like 9 or 10 to subscribers trying to go lower volume. I know it sounds like a lot, but for the Super Bowl, that's not a lot for me, for subscribers. So I want them to come into the steam room, already have the props they like. I'm going to give them every single thing that we moved and stuff that other guys gave me that's really sharp. See if it confirms with you guys. And here's the best part, that over these last 24 hours and over the next 24 hours, the betting public's getting to the window firing on these props. So even though some of these lines were gone yesterday, the day before that, they bounce back on that screen come tonight, come tomorrow. Because more times than not, we're opposite of what the public's going to do later. So these lines will come back. I talked about on WagerTalk today. You want to watch that clip. It's probably up there from yesterday. It tells you how to isolate some of the strongest props on Super Bowl Sunday. And we'll go over that in the steam room for sure.
Awesome, VR. We will see you tomorrow morning for the last call Super Bowl edition. Good luck. Cash them. Don't trash them. If you guys have a question for Steve Merril, drop it in the chat. We're going to go over some college basketball. If you guys have even some NBA, Steve Merril has been running hot in the association. Hello, Steve Merril. Thank you for patiently waiting in the wings. Sometimes I just like to let the dog off the leash when it comes to VR and just let him run because he just drops so much knowledge. And it makes me want to run through a brick wall on this Saturday morning.
No, it was fantastic. I love sitting in the wings and listening. We had a great segment. The segment he was talking about yesterday on WagerTalk today, I was hosting because Prez is in places unknown this week. And by the way, if you haven't been commenting all the week, where is Prez? Fake answers only in the live chat and in the comments below. But yeah, Friday WagerTalk today, must watch. Ace and I talked about buyback on these props. I asked him, why do you play unders on superstars early when we know the public's going to push the line higher in this week? And he did a great answer on that, and that's something he was hitting towards. So I do encourage people to go back and watch the replay of Friday and really every day this week because we had guests giving free Super Bowl props Monday through Friday. So yet another reason to dig in and watch some replays of WagerTalk today this week. It was Prez free. Joe Ranieri, Steve Merril hosting, so you are safe to go back and watch the replays.
I love it. I will be hosting next Wednesday. I just found out. But let's talk about some college basketball. Karen wants to know your thoughts on Illinois. Let me pull up the odds logic screen here because I had this game kind of on my radar as well, Steve. And here's where I have, some questions about this Illinois team, right? We all know Brad Underwood does a great job, but they're off a really ugly road loss there to Rutgers. Now they're still on the road playing a Minnesota team that I don't think they don't need to be written home about, right? Like, this is not a good team. They play a really slow pace of play. They don't make their free throws. They are rather frustrating, especially from three-point land. Do you think this is a good bounce back spot for the Illini, or it's too many points?
So last Sunday, I did some standalone free play videos, and one of them was on Illinois over Ohio State. They ended up winning that game by 8, and I pointed up they were coming off that overtime loss as a road favorite to Nebraska, and they did bounce back as expected. It was one of their better offensive games of the season. They had their worst defensive game. In fact, it was their second worst. The Alabama game is the only game in which they had a worst defensive efficiency rating all season. And Rutgers has been a tricky team for me this year. They've got two of the best players in the country, two NBA draft picks, but not much else. So they are capable of kind of putting it up on certain nights. I think it's a good bounce back spot for Illinois. Minnesota's always a tricky home court. But whenever I can get a team coming off one of their worst defensive showings and they're the better team in a focused spot, could be worth a look. And this line has come down a bit. It was 8.5 initially. Now it's down to 6.5. It looks like a big number, but I don't think I'd want to fade Illinois in this spot. Should be a focused effort today.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. The line movement always tends to kind of almost get in my head. Like that reverse line movement, something I love to see on the dogs in college football. So when I see it in college basketball, sometimes it's like, oh, maybe I need to be taking a second look here on the favorite. Do you take that into your handicap at all when you're looking on the WagerTalk free live odds screen?
So I'll give Ace credit. He had a great line yesterday, and I'll have to think. It was the talking about how he doesn't get rated in blackjack. He says, when you're playing high limits and not get rated, there's a reason. You're either a murderer or you're an advantage player. But he said, I had a great line right before that, which I came up with yesterday, and I said that you were never going to lose more money by beating the closing line. You might not win any more money. You're never going to lose more money, though. Whenever you get the better number, you're never going to lose more money. It's just mathematically impossible. So there's a lot of manipulation, and VR talks about that as well as anybody. So, you got to have a preferred side. And what cracks me up is when, a game will move a half a point, and someone will say, do you still like the play, Steve? And I'm like, no, I had that handicapped within a half a point. That's why I'm very selective. I used 2 best bets today in college hoops out of 100 games. But yeah, half a point sensitivity. No, look, when you're liking a play, there should be several points of line value built in, or you shouldn't be playing it. So I don't let the moves worry me. I think there's more manipulation now than you and I have ever seen, Kelly, during our career. With that said, though, it does piss me off when, I play a game and the line goes a point more and I miss that number. And it does concern you. But more times than not, it normally goes the other way. We're getting the better of the number.
All right, Steve, let's get some more of these. Prez is doing ayahuasca with AA Ron.
Are we getting answers? I don't pull up the live chat. I'm not allowed, so you got to tell me what people are saying.
God, let's go Wisconsin, Iowa. B Daddy wants to know here. Let me get the current line on the screen here for you guys. Iowa is a 6 point. Well, there's a 5.5 at Pinnacle as well as Heritage, but the onshore books everywhere pretty much 6 with the Badgers. If you guys listened to Art to start the show, he said Wisconsin was very square today as a road favorite. Steve, you do a fade the public video all few days a week at WagerTalk on the YouTube channel. Was this one that would have made that video?
I'll tell you, I don't dig a lot with the college hoops until we get to the tournament. I do like some consensus data when we get to the big games, the March Madness. There's just so much sharp money. The limits are so low. I'm very cautious. But whenever you see a public dog in college basketball, I do my top 25 video. I have that up right now with 6 games. It's actually top 30 video because I did 3 bonus games. I will say when I start to see some public dogs in those top 30 games, I like to fade them. That's one of my favorite angles in all of sports is fading public dogs. So, Wisconsin being the square side here isn't necessarily anything of a surprise because this Iowa team has struggled. They've now lost 5 of their last 6 games here in conference play. They also have big revenge from a 116-85 loss to Wisconsin back in early January. They lost by 31, and not a surprise, that was their worst defensive showing of the season. One of the worst defensive games I've seen by any team all year. So that's a concern. Obviously not a good matchup for Iowa, so not a surprise that the public would be on Wisconsin. We are getting a home team with revenge that's struggling. One thing I'll say about Iowa, though, is the defense struggled in that game, but their offense has been really good this year, and this isn't your mama and dad's Wisconsin. They play in the upper 50% of tempo. They don't play slow anymore. Iowa plays 23rd fastest team in the country. So I like the over in this game. Let's not bother with the side. Let's look at the over. 2 good offenses, and I think the pace will be fast.
All right, Steve likes the over there in Iowa City. Oregon is a square dog today. Plus 8.5. Preston wants to know. Let me get this one opened. Oregon. Let's see. Rotation number 605. This one's actually tipping off in 14 minutes, Steve.
Yeah, early
Oregon
start.
opened as a 7.5 point underdog, now up to 9, even 9.5 at some of the offshores. Total 147.5. Here's the real reality with Oregon, and here's the question I've had about this team for, a better half of the season. And now they've lost 4 straight, Steve.
Yep.
Is this a team you really want to back? I like Dana Altman from his time at UNLV, but this Oregon Ducks team has kind of been off the rails during Big Ten play. Like it started off early. They got that nice win over Alabama on that neutral court. Big Ten play comes, and the wheels started to fall off, especially as of late. I don't see Michigan State, East Lansing being a spot where they have an opportunity to get right. But they did just lose 2 straight games in California, USC and UCLA. I like the Sparty defense. Obviously, Tom Izzo is a great coach, but this team cannot hit a 3 to save their lives.
Exactly. And this is one of the games in my top 30 video because Oregon played their way out of the top 25. So I dug a little bit deeper and did some top 30 games. This was one of those bonus games. And I did mention the bad start time for Oregon. 9 a.m. Pacific. It's 8:48 Pacific right now, and they're getting ready to tip off here in about 12 minutes. So not a great setup. Not surprised to see the money coming on Michigan State. But when I did this video last night on Friday, I used the early numbers on Friday evening, and it was, as you said, Kelly, Michigan State -7.5. And even then, I thought it was a bit pricey, and is why I left it off my card today. And now it's pretty much priced out. I wouldn't be surprised to see Michigan State win by 8 or 9 here and it land right in the middle. With that said, I do not trust Oregon. I used them twice during this 4-game losing streak. They got blown out by UCLA, and then last Sunday I did a free play video right here on the channel, and I said, boy, this should be a good bounce-back spot for Oregon at home off a bad defensive showing against a Nebraska team that just pulled the upset over Illinois, and they lose outright as a 7-point favorite. They did play a narrow game against Michigan this past week on the road by 4, lost that game. But, yeah, cannot trust Oregon. You mentioned Oklahoma, another O team, how they've been tricky this year for you, Kelly. Oregon's one of those teams for me. And Nebraska and UCLA have been tricky for me. And guess what? Those are the 2 teams that beat Oregon. So there's just certain teams I can't get a read on. And the Ducks are one of those teams. They definitely have the talent to turn things around. They started the season 16-3, but they are a semi-falling knife right now after 4 straight losses.
That is a very good analogy, a falling knife. And a lot of people try to catch some of these teams and try to guess
cut.
when. Yeah. So talk to me about that handicap. Are you like me and you're like, all right, I'm done? Like Ohio State, I was done about 3 weeks ago. And of course, Ohio State gets a nice win over Maryland the other night. And a couple people jump in my mentions. Well, did you bet it? No, I didn't. I was done with Ohio State there probably early January. And yes, you can come back and start to look at those teams again. But how many times does a team have to burn you before you say, okay, bad read on this team, I'm done betting them?
Yeah. Fool me once, shame on you, right? Fool me twice, I think shame on me, or is it the 3rd time? Anyway, I don't get to the 3rd time. Maybe a 2nd time. And Oregon fooled me twice. And I talked about Nebraska. They're a textbook example of this also. Nebraska started the season 12-2, and then they lost 6 straight games. And one of those losses, I had a best bet on them against Rutgers, the 3rd loss during that span. I thought that was a great bounce-back spot against a Rutgers team that was a little overrated. But as I said earlier, Rutgers can catch lightning in a bottle also. They got 2 NBA-caliber players on the team. And then, it's just so tricky in college hoops. And you and I talked about this the other week with the NIL money. You definitely are seeing more randomness with the big schools, in my opinion. But you said something I agree with, is like when you get a bad read on a team, don't force it. And the biggest edge I still say that you have as a sports bettor in college basketball on a Saturday is the epitome of this example, is that they have to put numbers up on everything. And by the way, Super Bowl props are probably 2nd best example. They've got to put numbers up on hundreds of games or hundreds of props. And you could pick the 2 or 3 where you see an edge. And yes, you're going to leave some games off your cards that win. But by being selective, you're going to probably come out ahead in the long run better than if you played extra games. Look, it always stinks when you cut a winner. But when a team has been bipolar, I don't mess with bipolar. That's a great life example as well in general, including sports teams.
Yes, that is. I don't deal with crazy. Me either.
Don't deal with crazy. Oh, that's a great way to put it, man. We're stealing so many great lines. VR had one. You've got, don't deal with crazy. Don't mess with crazy. It's a great life hack right there. Sports betting's about life.
It is. All right, let's talk about one of the lone teams in the Pac-12. Oregon State St. Mary's. This is a late night special. Let me see what I've got here on my end, Steve. I'm not going to lie to you. Since basically Washington State and Oregon State are no longer in the Pac-12, now Big Ten. They're only in the Pac-12, the 2 of them. I'm sorry. I have not paid much attention to them. I loved the Pac-12 when I lived in Las Vegas. They were such a fun basketball conference. Now that most of them are in the Big Ten, a couple of these teams have really just been pushed to the wayside. Oregon State is a 4.5-point underdog pretty much everywhere across the screen. A couple offshores, they're painted as 4, 128.5. St. Mary's, one of those schools that I think always kind of flies under the radar, right? Because, well, they're second to none to a team named Gonzaga. They did just lose on the road to a solid San Francisco team. Now they're playing Oregon State at home. On the road. I apologize. And Oregon State is just a smothering tempo. They are just awful and slow to watch. But Wayne Tinkle's had this team have a couple of games here and there. Talk to me about the Beavers there in Corvallis.
You said Tinkle and Beavers in the same sentence. That's hilarious. Seriously, this should be the worst possible college basketball game to watch tonight. As Joe Ranieri says, if you're having trouble sleeping, just turn this game on. It's like watching paint dry. These are two of the slowest teams in the country. There are 364 teams that play college basketball Division I. St. Mary's is 357th slowest. Oregon State, 336th. So the under makes a lot of sense here. The problem is with the under, what kept it off my card is that both teams are very good offensive teams. They're both top 35 offensive efficiency. It's weird seeing Oregon State in the West Coast Conference, but that's the reality we live in now. And also, by the way, you mentioned that San Francisco loss. Keep in mind, St. Mary's beat Gonzaga last Saturday. We talked about the game here on the show to get off to a 10-0 conference start, 20-3 overall. So if there was ever a flat spot, it was at San Francisco Thursday. They lost the game by 1 point, and they were 3 for 23 from three-point range. 3 for 23, and they only lost by a point on the road. So they're a really good team still, and I would expect them to probably bounce back tonight.
All right, Steve. About 6.5 minutes until the noon Eastern games tip off. Anything you would like to leave our audience with? Any more last-minute questions? Drop them in the chat, guys.
So I did the top 30 video, 6 games. I'll throw some other of the early starts out that I gave in that one. I heard Ace mention that he liked Creighton. I left it off my card, but normally Creighton would have been a play for me today. Unranked top 25 favorites against ranked teams. Brian Power and I have talked about that for a few years now. And Creighton as a small favorite, at least they were overnight when I last checked, qualify in that spot. And it's also big-time revenge. They lost at Marquette. What left it off the card for me is the fact Marquette's off back-to-back losses. It'll be a very focused spot. But otherwise, that looked like a pretty good setup for Creighton as a small home favorite. And a late game tonight, there's only one team in the top 25 from the ACC. How crazy is that? And that's Duke, who is really good. They're the only team to beat Auburn this season, but no other team is ranked. I put this in my top 30 video because Clemson fell out. They're ranked 26th right now, first in additional votes, and they're 21st in the coaches poll. Clemson, though, just doesn't shoot the three well, and Duke takes away the three, so that's why I'm not sure they can pull the upset, but it got me kind of liking the under a little bit. The overnight line when I did the video was 134.5, so take a look at Creighton. It'd be a light lean based on the setup, and also kind of like that under in the Duke-Clemson game later this evening.
All right, awesome stuff from Steve Merril at Steve Merril, 2 R's, 1 L. You guys can find all of his stuff on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Also appreciate him always filling in for the Prez so that Prez can go do ayahuasca with Aaron, wherever the hell that is. I'll see you guys tomorrow, Super Bowl Sunday. We're going to have a whole hour-filled show. John Murray from the Westgate Superbook VR. And, of course, Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com answering all of your Super Bowl prop questions. Good luck today, guys. And as VR likes to say, do some damage.